Hello, everyone. I'm Arya, and welcome to today's session. In this session, we'll be providing more information about hyperthyroidism. But before we begin, let me tell you if you're looking for comprehensive and affordable healthcare by expert and trusted doctors from all over the world, eGlobalDoctors is one-stop solution for all your health concerns. We offer primary consultation, second medical opinion, multi-specialty consultation, follow-up calls, as well as diet consultation. Register today with us at www.eglobaldoctors.com and book your appointment to address any of the health concerns you have. For today's topic, we have with us Dr. Veena Watve. She has been working as a consultant endocrinologist in Houston, Texas, doing her private practice since 14 years. She has a fellowship in endocrinology from Wayne State University and residency in internal medicine from State University of New York, Buffalo. Welcome to the session, Dr. Veena. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much, Arya. Thank you for the introduction.
Thank you. If you're ready, we can just dive into the questions now.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So the very first question I would like to ask is, what is hyperthyroidism in simple terms, in layman terms?
So thyroid, as you know, is a small gland, a butterfly-shaped gland in the base of your neck. And that is a very important gland. It governs the metabolism of the body. So pretty much entire body system, it can potentially affect. And hyperthyroidism, as the word suggests, hyper means too much. So hyperthyroidism, meaning the thyroid is overproducing the thyroid hormones. And there are various reasons for that. So we can dive into that as we go along. But in simple terms, that's what it means, that the thyroid is overactive.
All right. Okay. So then what are the trigger factors or what are the causes of hyperthyroidism?
So there could be several. I mean, most common cause, definitely in US, what we see, where there is not, but there is pretty standardization of the food and of the environment and all that, is an autoimmune condition called Graves' disease. So it was Dr. Robert Graves who described it. Nothing grave about it. It's just the name of the condition. And it's an autoimmune condition. So there are several examples of autoimmune diseases like type 1 diabetes or psoriasis, or, there are several examples where basically what it means is autoimmune means your body's immunity turns against your own organs. And in this case, your body turns against your thyroid gland. So you will inherit these bodies. Generally, this is familial. You will inherit it from your ancestors, your mother, father, some far-fetched ancestors too. Sometimes it may skip a generation. And these antibodies will attack the thyroid and stimulate it. So that's what leads to the overactive thyroid. Nobody really knows who and why these antibodies are there in certain people and what are the triggers for that. I mean, there is if at all there is a correlation, there is some correlation with stress. So if you're under stress, body's under stress, then the hyperthyroidism may surface, the Graves' disease may surface. But besides that, there is really no correlation or no link between why this may happen. And just as it comes, it also may go down, and that immunity or the antibodies may slowly be not as aggressive, and it may go into remission. But it just depends case by case. Not everybody is lucky enough to go into remission, and some of them may need medicines or a little more aggressive treatment for that. So that would be one. The second most common would be thyroiditis, and there are several kinds of it. So in simple terms, again, if you're sick for some other reason, say a sinus issue, a stomach bug, and your thyroid has no business getting involved, there is some other body system that is failing, but sometimes the thyroid gets involved in the pathology, and it creates a surge, kind of a surge, so that the thyroid will emit these thyroid hormones. So this is called thyroiditis, and it's temporary. Generally, it will go on for 1 to 2 months, and once the other disease process dies off, it will go down again. So many times this may not need treatment, but sometimes it may also lead to hypothyroidism, so the opposite of hyperthyroidism. It's rare, but it can happen. And then the third cause is that third most common cause would be a lump in the thyroid, and we call it a nodule. So nodules are very common in the thyroid, and generally people just have it and they die with it, nothing happens. But one focus or one nodule may sometimes take over and make too much thyroid hormone, and that's what will suppress the rest of the gland actually. And that one focus is what is responsible for the hyperthyroidism. And there are again different ways of treating it. The one nodule can be zapped with radioactive iodine treatment. So all these three conditions have three types of different treatments. So it is important to know as a clinician when we are diagnosing people, we will try to differentiate between these three. Sometimes, most of the times, it's pretty easy to differentiate. Tests will help us too. Sometimes it can be a little tricky though. But in short, those would be the causes of hyperthyroidism.
Oh, okay, so it was thyroiditis, then the lump, and the first one you said
and
was?
Graves' disease.
Okay, Graves' disease.
Yes.
Okay, right. So then how are these diagnosed basically?
So the number one test would be the blood test, of course. You would do blood test, and generally people will go to the doctor with some symptoms. So before we go into the diagnosis, let's talk about the symptoms. So hyperthyroidism symptoms would be all symptoms of too much metabolism. So top to bottom, all organs can get affected. So you'll feel hyper, so you'll feel anxious, some mood swings, irritable. Your heart will be pounding. You may have diarrhea, you may feel hot. So everything fast, you may have insomnia. So the metabolism is fast, weight loss. So you might be not eating as much, or you still have a ravenous appetite, but you would still be losing weight. So all symptoms of high metabolism. And people will go to the doctor for these symptoms. Sometimes they may have symptoms. Sometimes people think, oh, I'm losing weight. That's a good thing. I'm dieting, and that's a good thing. So sometimes we may not have a clear-cut symptom there, but then when you trace it back, then you lost 10 pounds over the 6 months. I mean, not to take away their credit, but it's not necessarily just the diet, it's also the thyroid. And so the first test you would run is T4 and T3, free T4 and T3. And that's the thyroid hormone itself. And then TSH is the pituitary hormone. So these are the basic tests. And if that comes out to be abnormal, then one would proceed to further testing. There are scans. One can do a radioactive iodine uptake and scan, where you swallow a iodine pill. Iodine has a tendency to go and focus in the thyroid. And it has radioactivity, the pill that you will get in for the test. And that's how it will light up. And they will take pictures, and the way it lights up, the gland lights up, will tell us more about the three differential diagnoses I just talked about. And to put it in simple terms about the T4 and TSH, free T4 and TSH. So, as I said, the thyroid makes mainly these two hormones, T4 and T3, and your pituitary gland in your brain is your master gland. So for all these three reasons, if the T4 and T3 is too much, if the thyroid is getting stimulated too much, it's going to send a signal back to the pituitary gland that, hey, there is too much in the body, you need to slow down, and the pituitary will be suppressed. So TSH will be low. And so that's the most common mistake people do, or, when they see the labs, a layman, not a doctor, but a layman, when they see the TSH low, they feel like, oh, my thyroid is low. It's actually the opposite. It's an inverse relationship. So that's what one needs to understand, that the TSH low means actually you are hyperthyroid. And as I said, beyond that, then there are these antibodies, these Graves antibodies that can be checked. And the thyroiditis also, one can do the other antibodies too. So blood test and some imaging, that's what one would do to diagnose it.
Okay, perfect. So, okay, that was my next question about the symptoms, but we've already covered. So I'm going to skip to the next one. What are some do's of hyperthyroidism?
So, I mean, there's a misconception, or I wouldn't say misconception, but people think, oh, I need to eat this or that, or I don't need to eat this or that, some goitrogenous food items, cabbage, and which is true. I mean, there are certain areas in the world also where there's iodine deficiency, and that can mess up with the thyroid. But for the most part, in developed countries, and I'm assuming most of the population who's seeing this is developed countries, as long as your diet is a regular diet, you're not doing something crazy, there is nothing that you need to really avoid as such. I mean, you can do your regular food and, exercise. Initially, if you're really hyperthyroid, your doctor will advise you that don't do strenuous exercise because you don't want to stress your system too much. So don't go run a marathon or something. So take it easy for some time. But as the numbers come down, there really is no restriction. So you can do whatever you want. There would be some I mean, if you go online, I'm sure there are lots of things that are mentioned. There are some yoga poses. There is this diet, that diet. Really, nothing really helps. So don't bother doing this. If you do it, there's no harm. But don't think that, oh, I can avoid medicine. If I do this, so it just is going to take its course. And what you can do is you can follow with your doctor. Especially hyperthyroidism is not something that you can go to the doctor and then forget about it, that, okay, I'm going to go back in 6 months. Now I have the pill. And sometimes people in India tend to do that I got the pill, I have the treatment. I can go when I feel bad. That's a misconception. So make sure you follow up every 6 to 8 weeks. If you're stable, your doctor themselves will tell you that, no, you're fine. You can come back in like 4 or 5 months. But this is a disease which will go up and down, and it needs to be checked, and the blood test does need to be drawn every 6 to 8 weeks. So make sure you are following up. And then beyond that, if your doctor says that, okay, this is being a little too hard to control, especially in Graves' disease, there is, as I said, that radioactive iodine treatment, or even for the nodule. So make sure you are aware of this and you talk to your doctor and have a discussion, because that would be more of a permanent treatment. So they give you a pill to swallow of this radioactive iodine, and that will essentially, for lack of better words, it would kill the thyroid and it will destroy it. And then you become hypothyroid, but that is much easier to manage compared to hyperthyroidism. So with hypothyroidism, you can go every 6 months, once a year, once you're on a stable dose. But hyperthyroidism will wax and wane, will go up and down.
Okay. So, but are there any particular foods that might worsen the hyperthyroidism if consumed?
No, as I said, unless you're eating like a cabbage every day, or like a bucket full of shrimp, or, giving yourself like a big iodine dose, or, one thing I will say, which is also a problem in the US, not so much in India, or I don't know about other countries, is the supplements. Please try to avoid these supplements. There are these supplements available in these GNC stores, something called Help for Thyroid, or Thyroid Health, or kelp, or seaweed and iodine, and will help your thyroid. Please avoid that. These generally have like 1,000% more of what you really require. So please avoid such things, because they can end up into hyper or hypothyroidism. You cannot predict that. So please try to avoid that. So yeah, as I said, the diet and the food would be just regular what you would usually consume.
Okay, all right. So my next question is there a particular age when you are prone to this hyperthyroidism, or any particular gender that is easily more affected with it?
So it is commonly seen more in women than men. So that is there. Age-wise, I will say no. I mean, just as you age, in general, the diseases tend to come more, and that's true for any disease. But it's not like if you are, a teenager or a young child. We have a pediatric endocrinologist in our office, and she surely sees her fair share of hyperthyroidism patients. So I would say, just because you have live more life, there is a more risk, but as such, you can't predict that your mom had hyperthyroidism or hypothyroidism. So as you age, okay, I'm only in my 20s, so I don't think I will have it, maybe late in life. So there's no rule as such. Even teenagers can have it. Even young children can have it, not even only teenagers, young children. It is rare though, because I mean, just because of aging, the normal propensity of getting any disease is more. So that's about it. But no, you're not safe just because of the age. Yeah.
Okay, all right. What would be the complications of hyperthyroidism?
So nowadays, the medical care is pretty sophisticated in most of the regions, people do seek advice from the doctor, they do go. But in olden days where, medical care was not as prevalent, one could die from this. So this is not something that you should take lightly, because, as I said, this is a disease where the metabolism increases. So you can imagine if the thyroid is overactive to the extent that the heart goes into overdrive, you could have atrial fibrillation, a complication of heart where the heart is like in a flutter, and that can lead to, you can die from it if that is not controlled. Similarly, weight loss and just basically you're wasting away. So, hyperthyroidism, it can lead to some severe complications. There is a condition called thyroid storm. Again, we don't see that as much anymore, because there is medical care available everywhere. But this is an emergency, where people are admitted to the hospital with heartbeat very high, blood pressure through the roof, and they have to be given IV medicines and heart medicines, thyroid medicines in the hospital. And this is, they're in ICU, and basically it's an emergency. So these will be the complications. So as long as, again, you take your medicines, you seek advice, and you are on top of your blood test, all this should not happen. The complications / symptoms, would probably be the same thing, but hair loss and irritability and mood swings, and if you may not do well in your school, college, or work, just because you can't concentrate, things like that. So, which, again, symptoms or complications, whatever you want to call it, all this can happen if you don't treat it.
Okay, right. How to manage some, I mean, sorry, I think I wrote it wrong, the question. Okay. What if someone has to manage both diabetes and hyperthyroidism concurrently? What should they do?
So these are not really connected. So, diabetes is in itself a disease. Type 2 diabetes is in itself a disease, and which is of pancreas and metabolism, as in, with obesity, linked to obesity. Whereas hyperthyroidism is a separate disease in itself. I will say that sometimes you may see weight loss and diabetes may get better because you have lost the weight. Type 2 diabetes, you may start seeing better sugar numbers, but there is not as much overlap as such, I will say. So, you manage your diabetes the way you would otherwise, and you manage your thyroid the way you would for the thyroid. So, just the metabolism symptoms, as I said, some overlap is there, but that's about it.
Coming to our last question here, I know we discussed about this, about the diet, exercise part, but are there any more tips that you could give us of how to take care of yourself if you have hyperthyroidism?
So, as I said, number one would be follow-ups. Make sure you're following up with your doctor and checking your blood test. Again, this is not a thing that you just let it go. Like, for example, I know even my friends and family in India that they would, oh yeah, I got a A1C, hemoglobin A1C 6 months ago, yeah, I'm eating well, my weight is stable, so I haven't seen the doctor. So this is not something that you will just let it go. Of course, manage your symptoms and pay attention to it. So if your symptoms are worse or better, or, keep an eye on it. If your weight, especially the weight is an objective thing, how you feel is a subjective thing, but at least weight is an objective thing. So manage your weight and do weigh yourself. A lot of people don't even have a weighing scale, so they have no idea until like they have lost 20 pounds and their clothes don't fit. So do weigh yourself regularly, and that would be a good sign of how you're doing. And then keep an eye on your symptoms, heartbeat, nowadays with Fitbit and all those things, some of the machines and the gadgets or even do your EKG for you. So you could do that. But I guess you don't have to go so much in detail, but all I'm saying is that be aware of what your body says, and then do follow up and do take your medicine, because for Graves' disease, there are pills that are available, methimazole and PTU. These are the most commonly used medicines. Do take it, compliance it can be an issue, because if you don't take it, that thyroid is not going to get treated. So make sure you're taking it. And if you are taking it, then it will show in the blood test, and then your doctor will adjust the dose. So the assumption is, especially with Graves' disease, that you will get better, and slowly the doctor can wean off you off the medicines. But sometimes it may not happen. Sometimes it may come back as you wean off. Say you started with 30 milligrams, went down to 20, 10, 5, and your doctor has left you with 5, let's say. Be aware of your symptoms, because in 2 months, 3 months, sometimes the Graves' disease may surface back, and you may again have those symptoms, and the thyroid levels are back up again. Now, if you don't follow up, you will never know that. So, that dose needs to be adjusted again and go up on the dose. And if this keeps happening again and again, that you go down, go up, generally in about 1 or 2 years, one would recommend that radioactive iodine treatment, which is the permanent treatment. So the 2 tips I would suggest is be aware of your body, of your symptoms, keep an eye on it. And then the second thing would be do follow up with your doctor with regular blood tests.
Amazing. So let me tell our viewers and listeners just one thing. If you are Indian origin living in US, and if your parents are visiting from India, you do not need to worry about their medical needs in the US. eGlobalDoctors has your back. They have different packages starting from $199 that provide access to 350 plus doctors from US and India with 30 plus specialties. Prescription will be provided, and family members can participate from any part of the world. Video consultation is about 30 minutes, and register today with us on www.eglobaldoctors.com. With that, we'll be wrapping our session for the day. Thank you very much, Dr. Veena. I really appreciate that you took time out from your busy schedule by sharing all the valuable information about hyperthyroidism. And I hope it was very helpful for all our viewers and listeners today as well.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me over. Thank you.
Thank you.